Tell them it's so for the broken. 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 Tell them it's so for the broken. Yeah. It's so for the broken. Yeah. It's so for the broken. Yeah. It's so for the broken. Boy, look around and need hope.
Welcome everybody to another Healing Broken Souls podcast. This is John, and we have a great group here today. Benny.
Hello.
And we have Drea here.
And it's your girl, Taisha, or Taisha.
All right. Hey, we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of people struggle with. And some say they do, and some say they don't. But, you know, when we started out Healing Broken Souls, you know, all of us that sit at the table and even those behind the scenes are devoted Christians, and we live as best as we can to the Word of God. I kind of believe everything in the Bible when it says in 1 John 1:7-9, when a man says that he does not sin, then he's a liar and the truth is not in him. We all have issues.
Amen.
So one of the things that I found myself personally is that I live in two worlds. Okay, I live in the world of the church, and I live in the world of mental health. And you know, a lot of people, especially in today's where what they call religion is a taboo. The one thing I would preface this with is I don't live a religion. I live by faith.
Amen.
Okay.
And relationship with God. That's the big thing.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think that even Christians got that confused. I'm not living a religion. I'm living by faith. Mm-hmm. But there are people that struggle with faith and mental health. You know, they don't know whether to believe in God, not believe in God. They don't know whether it's mental health or whether it's some other issue and concern. Sometimes, you know, that's a struggle in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, growing up as a person who, when he first started out, wasn't in the faith and just regular old boy, church didn't mean nothing to me. You know, my mom would put me on a bus that the church would send out and give me some money for the offering plate, and I'd go in the church and go out through the back door, go out to the local store, buy myself a bag of candy, go back into the church, go on that bus, and come back home. That's what I thought about as far as faith was concerned. But once I started understanding God's relationship with me, it completely changed. And I think that too many people are looking at, like you were saying, Benny, religion versus relationship. Mm-hmm. Because religion is, you got over 10,000 different religions in the world today. And all are saying that they are the right one. But what we're saying is we need a faith, a belief in a higher power, and I believe it's God, Jesus Christ, you know, and I know that everyone here feels that way. But it's that thing that helps us to be able to be holistically healed, because you can heal certain wounds, and whether it be medication, whether it be therapy, or all of these different things, you know, that's one thing. But how do you heal a broken heart? How do you heal brokenness whenever, you know, there's no script for it? There's no religion that tells you how to do that.
And I'm going to invite you ladies in here next. When I was going to college, one of the biggest things is that I had to face was humanistic thinking and understanding versus theology. Okay, is there an applicable or a fair medium between the two, or did I have to choose one over the other? But the one thing that I learned is that there is a equalness in between the two, your cognitive, rational human thinking along with your spiritual intelligence. And so what I battled was, am I cheating God, or am I living a lie? Okay. And so for many, many years, you get the humanistic thinking depending on which college you go to. And then it challenged even the most faithful person in their belief systems or whatever the case may be. And then I'm like, man, which one am I? Do I got the mental health issue? So, that was a big struggle for me in college. And I was like, okay, you need to figure out what's wrong with you. And I had a very good teacher by the name of Dr. Michelle Mallet, and I was taking a sociology class. You remember Dr. Mallet, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And she said, each one of you in this class will eventually probably need the very same services that you're going to provide. And I never forgot that. She said, you could be on the other side of the desk and say, hey, I need some mental health issues, or I need some cognitive readjustment, or whatever.
I asked that question to myself a lot about therapists. Like, do they see other people for help? And I was going to say that, growing up, we were just told that we had to go to church. Like, we wasn't explained why we have to go to church, or, what are we going to get out of it? We just was told, get up, you got to go to church, get dressed.
All of us are shaking our heads right now.
Yes, and so that's where I was at. So for a long time growing up, I just went to church just because. So when I got into my early teenage years, I used to go to church. I used to sit in the back of the row. I used to be on my phone. I was on Facebook. I was on all the other social medias because I was just there because I was told that I had to go. So after that, I just stopped going until I found my own relationship with God. Then, I went and found the church for me.
So what made you seek out a relationship with God? Did you have to?
I mean, for me, I felt I did because it was personal, because you go through so many things and you feel like you're having a mental breakdown. You don't got nobody to call on but God. And I'm like, okay, I need you. I don't know what else to do. So for me, I had to find my own relationship with him. And then I started going back to church. I didn't just go to church and then find a relationship with him. But I needed that relationship with him and get myself back in church so I could understand why I was going to church.
I know, like everyone else, sometimes you grow up into a Christian household and you go to church every Sunday. That was me. But you have to go through things to understand why you need to be in church. And I think I moved out my mom's house. I'm like, all right, I ain't gotta go to church no more. It's only when you stay in your mom's house you have to go. Well, she always said, once you get out my house, you can do what you want. So as soon as I moved out, I stopped going. I thought I was grown, got my little own apartment and everything. And you start going through so much stuff that you don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. And me, every time I will walk into these doors and it's a song, it's what the pastor is saying, anything, I was always crying. And I couldn't understand why. And finally, I'm just, you just have to accept it. You're running away from something. You have to be here. And now I work every other weekend, so I'm only able to come on every other weekends. But I be ready. I can't wait for Sundays because it's that feeling you get when you walk in, and it's just
when you got to come hear a crazy pastor.
And something that I learned. I always heard different pastors at different churches talk about tithing. I never knew what it was until I became an adult and I started tithing. And when I started tithing, I'm like, okay, as soon as I get my check, let me do what I need to do with God first. And if I ain't got no money to pay no bill, then baby, I just ain't got no money. But I felt like I did my part, so I'm going to let God do his part. So I was never worried about it.
Right.
I did my part. You know, I gave God what he was supposed to get, and I just let it be. I used the rest of the money for whatever I needed. But I'm saying that because, you just went to church just to go to church. You had to go to church, but you weren't taught all these different things. And so
what would you say to that person that say they don't believe in God and there is no reason to believe in God.
Personally, I tend not to try to get frustrated with people like that because you can't make them think a different type of way. And I have learned that, I probably haven't spoken out as much as I probably should have about that in, group settings when I hear people say, oh, they don't believe in God. And I'll be willing to say, you just crazy.
And it amazes me because when you grow up in a church, that's all you know. The religion thing, I feel like that was back when I was younger. It was a religion. Now, you more or less want to have a relationship because there's a lot of religion out there. You tell this person, oh, it's only this religion. They can go out and find another religion. And, it's so much, but it's that relationship. But with me, it just seems crazy to hear someone's not crazy, because they're not brought up how you are brought up,
I just tend not to argue with people who say they don't believe in God. I try not to ask why because then it turns into something else. And I don't want that to affect my mental state on where I'm at and where I'm trying to go with the relationship with God. I honestly feel sorry for him.
One of the things about faith and everything is knowing who God is.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing his true nature, knowing what he is all about. One of the things that we hear as pastors and in the mental health field, well, God can't be a loving God because God created sin and God did this and let all these bad things happen and everything. And I was just actually reading this today. There was this college professor who was talking about this sort of thing to the students, and he said, obviously God created sin, and therefore, God can't be the loving God that he claims to be. And he talked about how there's so many bad things in the world that are happening and everything else. And then one of his students challenged him, and he says, Professor, what is light? And he talked about what light was. And he says, what is darkness? And they said, well, darkness is the opposite of light. And they asked the same thing about heat and cold. And so, long story short, he was sitting there saying to this college professor who was thinking that he was all that, saying that, since God is such an evil God and everything like that, nobody wants to have anything to do with him. This kid looks at him and says, when we talk about darkness, darkness does not exist because it's not part of physics. And cold is not part of physics. Heat is. Light is. Those are sources of energy, and they are detectable. What is darkness? Darkness is the absence of light, and therefore it proves that only the light exists. And the cold is the absence of heat, which proves that the heat exists. And he says, now, when you talk about sin, that is the absence of God. And that was Albert Einstein who brought that to this professor's attention when he was a student.
Oh.
And so, helping people to know and understand, when you ask the questions, when you talk about being upset with God or, try to not get into an argument or whatever, if you know God, like your best friend, you can easily explain who he is. And that's what's important for our faith, is being able to know, I know he's a loving God because when I was growing up in a dysfunctional family, that he brought me out of it. He gave me purpose. He gave me the understanding that I am more than what the rest of the world thought of me. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I was able to grow and mature and develop a real love. Right. And when I was able to develop that real love, then I had the ability to love him the way that he loves me. And I'm still working on that because I can never outlove God, okay? I just want to make that perfectly clear. But he taught me how to love myself and love others appropriately.
Yes.
Yeah. I think when we look at this, and because one of the reasons we started Healing Broken Souls was to reach those not believers only, but even non-believers, people that were not of the faith, that were looking for ways to make it through another day, or get that word of encouragement, because we every time I used to go to church, they say invite somebody to church, invite somebody to church.
Yep, heard it all the time.
Yeah, and it became like a never-ending song. And then I thought to myself, why are we inviting them when Jesus already invited them? Okay, we'll just encourage them to get to know who we know, the man we know. And I think in a peer review of the professional counselors, there was a report written that people without a spiritual or faith belief are more or less likely to succeed in treatment than those with one, okay? And whether that was mental health or addictions. And, the one thing that I know, even in the assessment process, as I'm doing an assessment to give a diagnostic impression or a diagnosis, one of the things that is mandated that we ask people, do you have a belief in God, and as John says, some people say, or a higher power, but that's something that is so integral into the wellness of how the progress is going to proceed. Okay, so like when people found out I was doing counseling at church, they like, "Are you serious, man? We never had that before." But I don't do it to get paid. I do it because that's a service I want to afford God's people.
And Lord, we appreciate it.
And I don't do the counseling any different than if I was in my office. I'm not in there saying God said this and God said that. I'm just looking at the wellness of that person, because the rest will come.
Well, they've done studies. And those people that have faith are 45% more happier with their life because of having faith versus those that are not having a faith.
So what do you say to the person who say, well, I don't need faith to be happy?
You need faith every day you walk up out of that bed. You have to have faith in being able to know that you're going to be starting the day off with going to work or whatever it is that you're doing.
A better attitude.
I need faith to take my anxiety pill when I start driving. That's what I need faith. Because people driving crazy.
Yes.
Slow.
There's that cognitive faith, and then there's that spiritual, that religious faith, and that have to mesh with one another, in and out, in and out. It's kind of like, if you, anybody remember them old quilts mama and them used to make, or grandma used to make?
Yes.
The quilt that they used to put on you that would smother you to death.
So heavy.
Some of them that was itchy.
They use that old crocker sack or whatever that stuff was. It's like that. You get the little pieces and you sew them together, and you mend the broken pieces of the person. That's what addressing mental health is. It's mending the broken pieces of a person, and I think that's the most important thing. Wellness is so important right now, not just cognitive wellness, but spiritual wellness as well.
And it's important to know and understand that things can be healed when you're broken. Things can be fixed when they're broken.
Yes, they can.
And we're taught, well, it's broken, might as well just trash it and throw it away and go on to the next model or whatever. But, when we're talking about lives.
And it won't happen overnight. It does take time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But once we begin to have faith that, hey, I'm broken, and what we once thought could never happen to us being healed, and now we're on the healing end of it all, and we can say, yeah, we did this. God gave me the ability, I'm going to be like that homeless person that's going to go over and say, hey, you want a meal? Come over here. I know the person's going to fill your belly up real good.
Yeah.
But, spiritually speaking, it's the same thing.
I had I used to love my alma mater, Taylor University. Everything I wore had Taylor on it. Taylor on the cap, Taylor on the T-shirts. And I had that one cap that just looked like it should have just been in the garbage years ago. It had holes in it and everything. And my mama said, baby, don't lay that cap down. I said, why? She said,
"Because throw it away."
She said, I'm going to throw it away. I said, what's wrong with my hat? She said, child, you ain't put it in the washer. You ain't did nothing with it. You just slap it on your head. But that hat went with me through my college experience. And everywhere I went, I had that hat on. And it was just that one piece that kept me grounded. And so when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about all facets of it, whether it's anger, depression, PTSD, major depressive disorder, personality disorder, disassociation, whatever the case may be. We're talking about everything because even Christians have mental health issues.
Oh, yeah. Just
Amen,
because
yeah.
you're a Christian doesn't mean you don't go through.
And the Bible actually records many different famous people in the Old and New Testament that had mental health issues.
Yeah. So, and this is for believer and non-believer alike. If you have mental health issues, go see someone.
And there's no
because
shame. There's no shame.
It can roll over and affect your health.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Yes. And it can actually stop you from progressing to where you want to be.
Yes.
So, and this is my life, my profession is to help people be better than they were yesterday. That's how I want patients to be better than they were yesterday. And, and I'm not in my office throwing Bible verses and saying, thus says the Lord, and, and God's going to bless you. And I'm not doing all that, I'm talking to them, and the best thing
you do
we
something
can
different.
He listens. That's what he does.
I was going to say, you listen. And it's not listen to respond to what they're saying. You listen to hear, and then you ask the clarifying questions. So what I hear you saying is this, and then you repeat it.
Yeah, and that's called motivational interviewing for some people that don't know what that is.
And don't use pretty words.
Don't use pretty words. But as I was explaining to somebody today that I was speaking with about a counseling session, counseling is not to tell you what to do, it's to walk alongside of you and help you look at the various options and choices.
He gives you the tools to use to help make your situation better.
Yes.
Because we're here to not enable you.
Right.
We're here to empower you, for you to be independent, for you to be able to say, I did this with the grace of God, or I did this because I had faith in myself that I could do it.
And as long as you tell yourself you want to do it and you want to continue on that path, he going to walk with you. He ain't going to push you. He ain't going to make you do it. But as long as you want to take the ride, he going to be right there.
And that's the whole thing. And therapy is supposed to end. It's not supposed to last forever. I've seen some patients with some therapists that they've been in there 10 years. I'm like, why are you still here? You ain't got this figured out yet? Therapy isn't supposed to last, a lifetime, and I think that's what a lot of people, we talk, I go to counseling and we just talk. No, we got to work on something.
So for me, I went to a therapist. I was there probably, 4 or 6 weeks. And all they did was listen. They really didn't talk. They just let me talk. So I really didn't get the tools that I needed. I'm just here just to be here. And I didn't feel like, okay, this ain't the right session for me. So years had passed. So then I decided to go and speak with someone else who actually listens and talks back and encourages and gives me the proper tools to use to learn to communicate with my children and my friends and significant other. And that's what it's supposed to be about.
And do you see how that mirrors your very first statement about when you started going to church? You just went through the motions.
Yes.
And it wasn't until you realized that somebody cares about you and listens. And that's what God does for us. He listens to us. He doesn't interrupt us. And then all of a sudden, he helps us by saying, okay, so now what you going to do?
I kind of like what Taisha said one time. She said, if I can't trust you, I can't deal with you.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember her saying that because you know what? If there is no trust in who you put in confiding your information, and I'll tell everybody in therapy and out of therapy, don't give everybody your information until you know you can trust them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, that's how we got started.
Yeah. And that's so important. Even a therapist, spoon feed that jackrabbit until you know that.
That's why she come with the 25 questions when you get a new friend.
Yeah.
And also it's important to make sure that they're in for the long haul because,
Yes.
Especially like in the mental health field, you switch counselors, you switch therapists on a regular basis. And sometimes, you just get to that point where you're about ready to give that trust to that therapist and something happens and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't want to talk to anybody else because I just gave.
Especially when we went through all that, you
Yes,
you go
why
through.
do I have to repeat this all over again?
Exactly.
So, with that, we're going to get ready and try to shore this up. I'll tell Christians and non-Christians alike, if you are having issues with any type of what we would call mental health issues, depression, anxiety, anger, low self-esteem, being disassociated, not engaging, isolating, whatever the case is, sad, lonely, whatever.
Addictions.
Talk to someone. Just don't try to work that through by yourself because if you could have fixed it, you'd have did it by now.
You can't fix everything.
And there are some good pastors that are trained in counseling, but if not, go find you a community mental health center, find you a qualified therapist. See if that relationship you can build on. If not, keep searching until you can find that therapist that's going to help you work through your process. You can tell mama some things, you can tell daddy some things, you can tell sisters and best friends, but sometimes you need that neutral person to help you work through some things. And if you haven't looked in our society, we got a lot of people in need of help.
Yes. And I just want to tell everybody, if you are that person who is needing some type of help, to find someone, let us know. We are here. We are here to help you find that person for you to talk to.
And the last part, if you're having thoughts of harming yourself or committing suicide, call the suicide hotline number right now. Get online, talk to someone. Just don't try to push your way through. Go to the nearest emergency room, get some help.
And if you don't know the number, it's 988.
Yes. So God bless you. God be with you. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Whoop, whoop.
Look around, we need hope. Dark world, we need hope. Broke world, we need hope. We all need hope, need hope, need hope. Look around, we need hope. Broke world, we need hope. We all need hope. But tell them it's hope for the broken. 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 Tell them it's hope for the broken. Yeah, it's hope for the broken. Yeah, it's hope for the broken. Yeah, it's hope for the broken. Boy, look around, we need hope. No question about it, can't get around. The whole world around us need hope. No escaping about it, let's talk about it. We imperfect people who broken.